Hello there, and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America podcast. It is Friday, June 30th, 2023. I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And I am Ted Rall, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the left.
You wake up and you figure, what are you going to draw about today?
not having that problem.
No, today. Well, it's actually the embarrassment of riches. I mean, let me ask you, Ted, on a day like today, I mean, or a week like today, that didn't sound right. A week like this week, when you had,
or a week like today, there's that whole breaking story about space time.
The gravity waves. How cool is that?
Maybe it is like that.
We are literally, this planet is literally bobbing in a sea of. I think that's kind of, I don't know, relaxing, terrifying,
but
both at the same time.
It just is. I mean, obviously it can't scare you. I mean, it's been going on for a long time, so it's got to be cool by definition.
But it's one of those things that the astrophysicists predicted was out there, and they put out some instruments. They flew some stuff out into space, and they found that, oh shit, we were right.
Who knew? Yeah.
So 5 major decisions really coming down the pipe in the last week. I mean, so as a cartoonist, Ted, what do you do? I mean, you usually draw 3 cartoons a week, right? I mean, for syndication.
I mean, yeah, really. Well, really 4 to 6, depending.
Well, so you could conceivably do 1 cartoon on each of these decisions.
That's true.
But some of these decisions are bigger than others. Although I think there are some that have been buried that no one really paid much attention to, which I think are massive decisions, and we'll talk about in a few moments. But as a cartoonist, what do you do? I mean, do you just say, this is the one that interests me, I'm going to draw on this. This is the one that interests me, I'm going to draw on that. When there's kind of this embarrassment of riches, what do you do?
Yeah, I definitely do the thing where I say, what topics am I interested in? And then do I have anything interesting or cool to say about it? So there can be a monumentally important story that I just don't really care about. And so I will not do anything about it.
Do you take any trash?
Or I care about it and I care about the story, but I don't fucking draw a cartoon about it because I don't have anything cool to say about it.
Okay. No, I'm the same way. Now, do you get grief for that at all? I mean, from your fans, that why didn't you talk about this, Ted?
Not really, but that's because I think that's more of an issue for guys like you who've been on staff at papers. I think your editors kind of like expect you to touch all the major bases, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
But like, I'm my own boss. I've been syndicated only and freelance only for forever. So I don't really, that doesn't happen much. I get trolled sometimes for like, why don't you do anything about Russia invading Ukraine or whatever? And it's kind of like,
you have, by the way.
Yeah, I have. And I also don't do anything about, I tend not to do a lot of foreign policy cartoons. I don't do like cartoons about, for example, a lot of cartoons about, say, Saudi Arabia's dismal human rights record. It's just, I'm much more, but I might do cartoons about America's relationship with Saudi Arabia, and it's a country with a dismal human rights record. So, I mean, basically, look, no one person could possibly, even if you were doing 1 cartoon every day, you'd never hit every major story. So you'd never satisfy anyone that way. You have to please yourself in this business. I mean, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. And earlier today, or yesterday, was it? Or no, yeah, you posted to Center Clip, which is the app that you and I are involved with. There's effectively many podcasts for those of you who have not gotten it yet. And if you're listening to this podcast, you should.
And if you don't, you will be killed.
But affirmative action. Yes, we will. Our minions will find you. But you talked about affirmative action. You really codified it. But for me, I was thinking, should I cartoon about this? And I didn't really know what to say. So all I'm doing is saying that you and I apparently think alike in terms of our cartooning. The student loan thing is a little different. You and I talked about it on this podcast before. and the student loan decision saying that the president does not have the authority to do this. I said this from the beginning. I believe
You
you
did.
agreed
You were
with
very,
me.
very strong about this, for sure.
Yeah, he just, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, the thing is, people are going to go, well, what about the poor, the students, all the poor? I'm going, it doesn't, that's not the point here. And it never was the point in terms from a constitutional standpoint. The president doesn't have the right to arbitrarily say, and your debt shall be forgiven. Because if it's Biden, if it's Trump, if it's Lincoln, if it's Washington, it doesn't matter. None of them had that's just executive overreach. And and I really agreed with the Supreme Court's decision on this. Did you read the dissent though, Ted?
No, I did not read this particular dissent.
It's a lot of the conservative legal minds, and there are quite a few. I've just been berating it. Do yourself a favor, and if you're listening to this podcast, it really just relies on emotionalism. It's not very good. I can't remember. Oh golly, help me, Ted. I'm having a senior moment here. The African-American woman appointed by Joe Biden.
Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson, and she wrote it, and it's frankly, it's steeped in emotion and not steeped in logic, and that's a shame. But
it's got to be. I mean, a court decision, even a U.S. Supreme Court decision, where there's more latitude, should be primarily based upon the Constitution first and foremost, and then legal precedent, right? And then tertiarily, you can they certainly should and do address the societal implications of a decision, and it's something that they traditionally do take into consideration.
So the student loan thing, I mean, again, regardless, I mean, Ted's been shackled with student loans. I have a very dear friend who's still paying his, and he's older than me, and still alive, which is a miracle. But that wasn't the case here. That wasn't the precedent here, and that wasn't the legal question before the court. It was, does the president have the authority to do this? And the answer just flat out was no.
I'm actually surprised that it wasn't a unanimous decision, because it seems really so obvious that it's not, that they just don't have grounds.
Now, affirmative action, that was one, like I said earlier, you kind of codified why. Do you want to expand, or at least tell our listeners here, you talked about the resentment aspect of it.
Well, wait, are we going to do are we going to do one segment on all the Supreme Court things?
We're packaging this. See what we're doing. See what I did here? For those of you who don't know.
No, I don't. That's why I'm asking.
I said it before we started recording.
Yeah, I thought we were doing one segment on each.
We're like decision. A married couple. You don't listen. You just don't listen.
I thought you said that you were, but you said that's what married couples always do. But you said.
No, what I'm going to do is, because there's 5, we're going to have 3 segments of this podcast. And I'm going to break it down into 2, and 1, and then kind of talk about the legacy of the Trump court.
Okay, all right.
All right. So first one is education. It's affirmative action and student loan. So we talked about student loan.
All right, I love this. There's a method to the madness.
Yes, or madness to the method. Whatever. And at the same time. So student loan, you and I agree with, that was the right decision for the right reason. Yes. Affirmative action, like I said earlier, I was kind of muddled about. I really was like, oh boy, what do I've never liked affirmative action. I believe, and this is where you and I kind of disagree on in terms of social and economic position. I believe in meritocracy, I think, a little more than you do in terms of like more pure meritocracy. But with affirmative action, it belied that. And from my perspective, it was, it flew in the face of, having smart students go to the smarter colleges, the more challenging colleges or whatever. But by turns, I mean, you can't deny that people of color in this country were, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for, Ted? Yeah, fucked over.
Fucked over. Yeah, that
fucked
would be
over hard.
Phrase. Yeah.
By this
and
country.
Still are. And still are.
And still are. We're not okay, folks. Scott is not declaring this a total meritocracy, but we're better. We're closer. But you talked on Center Clip about the resentment that this elicited. And I want you to talk about that again, if you would. And
Well,
kind of
I
expand
will.
on it.
And before I get into that, though, I do kind of want to just sort of point out that in a way, both of these Supreme Court decisions are about getting rid of bad solutions to real problems. So the problem with college education in the United States is that it's so expensive. And so because it's so fucking expensive, children and their parents go into massive amounts of debt. And I'm not even sure that it's easy to say that colleges are just raking in the money, because I know a lot of people who are, have an inside track into the finances of higher educational institutions. And they say that they're really broke. They're having a hard time, paying their budget. They don't pay their professors very well. They're not able to get the infrastructure improvements that they need in order to keep modernizing their physical plant. So I don't really know. I mean, so basically college tuition keeps going up. The government keeps lending people more money, and wages are static in real terms. So basically, you're saddling 21-year-olds who are never going to earn less money in their lives with the biggest debt that they will ever have in their lives that they can't get rid of in bankruptcy. So yeah, we have a massive problem. The only people who are really raking in the money here are the big student loan lenders, like the big banks, like Bank of America and Chase. These guys, they're charging like 20% on Parent Plus student loans and stuff. I mean, it's usurious and it's disgusting. And I think we need to, if we had, for example, a policy that said that banks cannot make profits on student loans, all they can charge is a processing fee, just enough to, cover their costs of approving and servicing the loan, like let's say 0.5% over prime. That would be fine with me. I mean, that would be moving in the right direction. We really should nationalize colleges and universities and have them all belong to the states and to the federal government. But the point is, until we do something sane and like that and bring about socialism, we're stuck with this system. And President Biden's approach was unconstitutional, and he should have addressed this issue head on in Congress when he had a Democratic House of Representatives. He did not. He chose not to do that because he knew he didn't have the votes to get past cloture in the Senate. But tough shit. This is also something that Obama could have taken care of when he did have the 60 votes in 2009 and 2010. Point is that this was a stupid solution to a real problem, and that problem still remains. Affirmative action is the same thing, even writ larger. Systemic racism has resulted in the fact that the percentage of students who are of color who go to institutions like Harvard and Yale is lower than the population. I think if memory serves, I think 6% of the student body at Harvard is Black, and the population, I think in the general population, I think Blacks are 14% of the population. So even after all these years of affirmative action, it hasn't really gotten where we want to go. You'd kind of want to see those numbers roughly be the same and represent the population. Race-based affirmative action was a very clumsy approach. Basically, it was saying, I've heard the argument in favor is like, when it was first passed by the Supreme Court, the instructions from the Supreme Court was you could use it as a tie. So all things being equal, you have let's say your Asian applicant who has the same exact grade, same GPA, same quality of essay, same extracurricular activities, applies against a Black applicant to a college with the same exact credentials. The school could say, okay, we're going to give it to the Black kid because that would be affirmative action. It's a tiebreaker. In reality, of course, it never worked like that. And I worked in the admissions department at Columbia, so I know exactly how it worked. I watched it work. And basically the way we used to do it, and I'm sure other schools do their own thing, but it was very coarse. So at the time I was there, roughly speaking, if you had a 3.78, you could get into Columbia. If you had a 3.22 and you were Black, you could get into Columbia. So things aren't really so equal, right? I mean, and so we literally were giving full scholarships to millionaire people whose parents were literally making $2 million. I'm thinking of someone very specific, $2 million a year, at the same fucking time that we were rejecting literal coal miners' daughters from West Virginia who were at the absolute top of their class and had done a million interesting things in school. So it was so the thing is that it caused all these resentments, because basically it's like, okay, Black people, we're going to make things right for you. Now, again, it's a terrible solution, because even if you say, like, we're not going to fuck over any white people in the making of this political solution to systemic racism, you still have a problem, because you're basically allowing Black people to live in communities with shitty schools, K through 12. Then you put them into an Ivy League school or another, whatever, you let them into college. And now at grade 13, effectively, you're saying, okay, well, hey, swim. It's like, well, they don't have the preparation and they end up dropping out of school and then being saddled with student loan debt that they can't repay and no college degree. You haven't done these people any favors whatsoever by admitting them into college, when they can't do the work. I mean, really, the solution to the education disparity inequity begins with pre-K. It has to, and you have to make sure that people everywhere they live have access to a high quality public education. Affirmative action never addressed that issue. It never fixed that problem. No. But then in terms of the political, as I said on Center Clip, when you have a sweeping societal solution to a systemic issue, you have got to get buy-in from society, and particularly from the people who will be negatively impacted. And so what's happened, but they didn't do that. What they basically said was, we're going to give Black people, and to a lesser extent, Latino people and Native Americans, a leg up. And it's like, well, of course, whiteys like us are thinking a leg up at whose expense? And it's like, it does come at someone's expense, because seats in college they're fixed. You can't create new ones. We're not like the government where they can mint more money. Like there's only set amount. So it's a zero-sum game. For every person of color you let in, there's a white person or an Asian person that you're not letting in. So not that Asian people aren't people of color, but for the purpose of this discussion. So it's a serious fucking problem, because then over a lifetime, even liberal white people like myself start to get annoyed. I mean, I had a job as a tutor at a high school, which we will call Trinity High School on 91st Street on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, because it's called that, and at a program called Prep for Prep, which was called that, and I was tutoring math, and there were no complaints whatsoever about my performance. I was I was a great tutor. I know I was a great tutor. I could justify that on another podcast someday, but the point is, I knew it wasn't because of my performance. They came to me and they said, listen, we're firing you because we'd like to hire a Black person to replace you. And the guy looked at me almost like I was supposed to be like, oh, what a good idea. Like I was supposed to be happy for this Black person. I mean, it wasn't even like anywhere like, oh yeah, sorry, but I hope you understand. It was just like, like, hey, guess what? We're doing this. And I remember just thinking like, okay, I'm 21 years old. I have my life ahead of me. I'll do something else. Whatever. Fuck you. But I remember also thinking that if I were inclined towards racism, this would be the kind of experience that could really sour me against the way I looked at Black people. It didn't, but it could, and I'm sure those kind of things happen to other people. I've had other experiences, like recently, as you know, Scott, the Pulitzer Prizes were taken over by a woman of color, and she quite proudly announced that the implication was clear, that basically non-people of color had not been considered for any of the prizes in any category that first year that she took over. And then she gave this announcement where she kind of said every single category has gone to a person of color. And it's kind of like, okay, fine, you do what you want. You can call it like the Black Pulitzers or whatever, but then tell us whiteys not to apply so that we don't waste our $75 application
Right.
fees, and we don't waste the time putting together a package. And I mean, it's kind of like, it's like in Hollywood, the Oscars so white movement has caused the Oscars to take a fresh look at Black actors. But if you're a white actor, that's coming at your expense. And I guess the question is like, so for hundreds of years before I was born, rich white assholes oppressed and treated Black people like shit. And so I'm supposed to lose my job over that? It seems to me like that should come from like rich assholes who inherited all the accumulated wealth that was generated by all that slavery and oppression. It shouldn't come from me. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And I think what was really, I got to say, I want to get your thoughts on this, Scott, because I thought the implication of the court's direction was really interesting. Justice Roberts' opinion clearly gave guidance to colleges saying that if they could still consider diversity, for example, by reading the essays, taking into account the application essays in which ethnicity could come into as a topic, the experience of an applicant, and so on. But he also was explicit in saying that class is a real issue and that schools have every right and probably should address inequity in people's economic status through the college admissions process. And so if you have 6 Republican conservative justices all saying class is a real issue in the United States and it should be remedied with a remedy that is so, I know you can see where I'm going here.
I can see it.
Is so radical that even though we're saying that like that race-based affirmative action is against the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution, but we still nevertheless believe that you should legally be allowed to discriminate against applicants and other people simply because they happen to be because they happen to be wealthy, then isn't the implication that capitalism is a failure and that socialism is the solution? Because socialism seeks to do exactly what class-based affirmative action does. It redistributes opportunity and therefore redistributes wealth from the rich to the poor. So essentially, John Roberts is a communist. I say this approvingly. John, yeah. I'll say, comrade,
Roberts.
I will see you in the streets at the barricades.
I mean, a lot to unpack there, but I don't think you're wrong. I mean, firstly, to say that, or that they're wrong, to say that classes should be and could be and should be one of the determinations for higher education, some of the more elite levels of education. Absolutely, because that's where, obviously you and I both would agree that that's where inequities occur, not just economic, but then social opportunities.
I guess I don't care that much about like rich Black people who face like problems. I feel like they're rich, their wealth pretty much takes care of them. And yes. I care more about poor white people than I care about rich Black people. I care more about poor Black people than I care about poor white people, maybe. But I definitely care more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I hear you. One issue that this reminds me of very much, you talked about, just to backtrack a bit, is this reminds me very much of busing. And I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember busing.
I do, yeah. I was briefly bussed. Dayton was subject to court-ordered busing.
And it was the dumbest idea. I mean, it's one of those things that a committee would come up with. You'd stick around, you go, Ted, you know what I'm thinking? You know what will work, which will make everything equal, is if we move kids around, inconvenience their parents, put them in dangerous situations. Yeah, all those in favor say
inconvenience the shit out of them.
It was It was bad. It was a bad system, badly implemented, and it didn't work one lick. Apparently, there were some successes. I'm going to walk that back half a step, but for the most part, it did not work. It was not effective. It was the very clunky hand of the government reaching in and very clumsily saying, "We're going to fix this," and not. Affirmative action seemed to have sort of the same vibe about it, that we're going to fix this. This will fix everything. And what's weird about, and it's so American, and then we're stop and jump to the next segment, but how American is this? We can't nuance this because our little American brains apparently can't process that. So we're looking for the one big answer to a very complex problem. And that's what affirmative action was, in my view. That's certainly what busing was, in my view. With that, and so going forward, I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be some help for students who, could use it. But it's going to be fascinating to see what this does to education numbers going down the road. And I'd say and it'll happen quickly. It'll happen within 3 years, 2 to 3 years.
The Washington Post did a study, and they are predicting that overall enrollment of minorities will decline in particularly at the most competitive schools. We shall see. I mean, the thing is, if you do class-based affirmative action, which Robert suggested you could do using zip codes, financial data, and so on, it seems to me like you'd have a pretty close correlation with race. I mean, what this is really going to advantage is, of course, the plaintiffs in this case, who were Asian American students, who have gotten really fucked over and maligned by affirmative action. I mean, these are hardworking, qualified kids. And like literally it comes down, I'm sorry, I think it's racism, I think, on the part of college admissions officers. They're like, oh, we don't need all these like fucking black-haired people who play violin and piano and like computers. Like it's going to make the school boring. And it's like, first of all, that is ridiculous. I mean, it's like to say that like Asian people are inherently boring, or that like you can assess who's going to be interesting and who's going to be boring. I mean, these are completely I know, because I sat in these rooms. These are completely subjective decisions that these colleges make. I mean, like, I got into Harvard, okay? I got into Columbia. I got into the U.S. Naval Academy. I didn't get into Georgetown. They rejected me. Georgetown isn't nearly as competitive as Harvard or Columbia.
Why did they reject you?
And I wanted to go to Georgetown. That's the grand irony. As a political guy. They don't tell you why. You just get the thin envelope, like, sucks to be you. I don't know why. Yeah, quick. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't have that kind of educational experience. I did not take school as seriously as Ted Rall did, apparently, or should have, I guess.
Well, or perhaps not. My point, though, is that it's completely subjective. And I mean, did you read the affirmative action decision?
I only saw excerpts.
It's worth reading. And I have to say, it's very well reasoned, Robert's decision in particular. And one of the things that he goes into, the absurdities of like race. So basically, like Harvard and University of North Carolina each put all of their applicants into one of these like race baskets, like Hispanic or Asian. And then he points out, like, there's no distinction made between South Asians or East Asians. But
really?
These aren't the same people. They're just Asians. Or like during oral arguments, the defendant's attorneys were asked, what about Middle Eastern students, students from like Iraq or, Oman, where do they go? And he said, we don't know.
We don't know?
We don't know. And then he talked about like the Hispanic students, and they said they just want it. Basically, if Harvard wants its population to be 15% Hispanic, they don't care where they come from about any diversity at all. So they could all be from Mexico. They'd rather have 15% like for all from Mexico than to have, say, 7%, but from a variety of like South American countries. Or Do you know the Portuguese? They don't, like, college admission peoples do not consider Portuguese people to be Hispanic.
What?
Or, yeah, that's right. No one knows why. They just don't. Like, literally, it will say, like, Hispanic does not include Portugal. I don't know why. They
Wow.
seem, they're Iberian to me. I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like on the ass end of Iberian Peninsula.
yeah,
Just okay.
yeah.
And I
It's all very
that's probably
strange.
another podcast, but yeah, the racism against Asians and at a lot of levels in this country is pretty stark and pretty frightening.
And it's allowed. It's like one of those things where you're still allowed to, like, say that you think Asian people are this or that, and and that's total. Like, you can make fun of them and fat people. That's still cool.
Well, the idea that I've known Asian families, as you have, as we all have, who immigrated to this country, work their asses off, work a convenience store where everybody in the family works at it. The kids are, like you said, they're taught violin, they're taught to work hard, they get their grades up, and then they apply to places like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and it says, well, of course they're smart. Those that's how those people are. It's like really?
So let's hold that against them.
Yeah, let's say, okay.
Well,
It's
similar biases were in play against Jews not that long ago, like 100 years ago. They were like, oh my God, like at Columbia, they didn't want Jewish students at all. And they were like, oh, like, if we only admit people based on their qualifications, this place will be lousy with Jews. I mean, it's the same exact logic.
it's in New York City. I mean,
Well, there's that. Yeah.
It seems confusing. All right. So we're going to tie this up in a neat little bow, and we're going to go on to the next segment we're going to talk about. And it is these two subjects: web designers and postal workers. It sounds web designer and the postal worker. It doesn't that sound like a really bad Hallmark Christmas romance movie?
Yeah. Or a really bad novel.
Yeah, just really bad. So
Something bad.
something bad this way comes. We'll be back right after this. I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
We'll be right back.